This program is sponsored by Shenanigan Sports Pub.
Hold the Mayo. It's time for Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. Find out what's being served with Mike, Defo, and Luby, the only show that covers food, sports, and the proper maintenance of your car. And now, a man who had the distinction of having an entire health clinic named in his honor, Mike Mayo.
I want the flim flam sauce with the awesome veggie with shafafa on the side.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. It is Valentine's Day, and we're joined today by a special guest host with Defo still up gallivanting in Atlantic City. It is our pleasure to welcome back to the Lunchbox, because we've done shows with him before. The Professor, you may know him from his morning appearances on the Defo show with Luby. He has a real name, and that's Ken, and he is a restaurateur, which is why we have him on the Lunchbox. He is a partner, co-owner of a fine establishment, the Foundry in Pompano Beach. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, Ken. How are you today? Is he there?
I am great.
Hello.
Can I say you have picked a better?
His internet's going in and out.
Can you hear me?
Oh, he's choppy. Yeah, you're a little choppy.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got to get a reconnect.
Thanks for being here.
That's great. Hey, I'm going to go off on a little soliloquy, because you might have noticed I've started off on a more somber tone, because this is a somber day in South Florida, even though it is Valentine's Day and a big day for the restaurant industry, a big day for people to celebrate love. But unfortunately, now it's also marred on the calendar here in South Florida. It is the 5-year anniversary. It's hard to believe, of the massacre at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida, where 17 lives were, I'm not going to say lost, they were stolen, they were taken, they were murdered by a deranged young gunman whose name I will never say. And besides the 17 that were killed, students, teachers, coaches, there were also 17 who were wounded and maimed. And then there were hundreds of countless others who were also wounded emotionally and all kinds of psychic scars, and the ripple effect throughout the whole community and region, through all the people that worked around those buildings, the first responders who had to deal with the carnage, to friends and family all over. There are people now, again, still dealing with the aftermath, who still are traumatized, who still can't function in what you call a normal manner. And all kinds of heartbreak and hurt came out of it. There was a trial in the last year. The adjudication and the punishment, my mind, did not anywhere meet the level of the barbarity and inhumanity, nor did it, I think, rise to the letter of the law. We do have a death penalty in this state, and whether you agree or disagree with that, it should be applied to the letter of the law, and in some bizarre circumstance it wasn't. So this person will just rot in a penitentiary, state penitentiary, for as long as his days are going, and it might be short days considering what he did. But I don't want to be vindictive today, because today is a day for love. But it's just the hard part of this, and going beyond all the usual stuff about the guns and the insanity in this country and mass shootings and the lack of psychological and mental help for the people suffering from mental illness. Just beyond all that, it's just the humanity and inhumanity on a day like today, where all these kids who went off to school 5 years ago, many of them carrying Valentine's Day cards and flowers. They had a celebration in the Stoneman Douglas lunchroom that day, celebrating love in all shapes and sizes. And just a couple of hours later, there was carnage on the campus. So this didn't just steal lives, this act. It didn't just steal and didn't ruin people's lives of the survivors. It also stole a holiday, a day on the calendar that is meant to celebrate love. And it's turned it from hearts into heartbreak. And that, as much as anything, just makes it all the much worse. And I just want to give a moment of silence to all those who were taken and all those who have been impacted since then. Thanks. I think I tried to time it for 17 seconds. I don't know if I succeeded. All right, guys. Back to the usual frivolity. I mean, we do go on in our lives, and human beings are resilient.
Yep.
But if you do have any comments about our insanity as a country, I mean, it just seems like we accept. Part of being an American is accepting that our politicians won't accede to the will of the majority of people. I guess I've seen polls that 80% want sensible gun safety measures, not calling it gun control, not possessing everybody's firearms, but just gun safety regulations. And that some politicians, whether it's because they get campaign contributions from the NRA or are afraid of alienating their base that is around the margins, that determines too many elections because of our primary system. Whatever it is, I'm just sick of it, but I don't even know how to deal with it anymore. So I just eat and gamble. And that's basically it.
Wow.
But, Defo's not here. Defo's in AC.
Oh, it's interesting about our guest today. Not only he's a great degenerate because he's more level-headed and he's great at picking plays. His sense of humor is next to no one. And what's great about the professor, he's a gourmet. But I also appreciate him because Defo, you, me are very left. He is someone that's opened my eyes to a lot of things because he is logical about both sides. He's opened my eyes to the party I follow and to the other party, as he's been a part of both at some point in his life. And on this topic, he has a really interesting perspective because he grew up hunting, something a Jew from Sunrise didn't do, and two Jews from New York didn't do. But he owns guns, he's used them, but he's also, from what I've talked to him about, responsible in that belief. And I always appreciate going to Ken about these things because I can be very emotional. And he's a lot more logical about these things. So actually, I can't wait to talk about food with him because as much as he knows sports, he knows food. But he has an interesting opinion, at least from what we've talked about on this, because he's not some emotional liberal from South Florida. You're not. One thing I appreciate about you is you are more sensible. When I rant and rave about things, you bring me back to earth a lot of the time, and you show me the truth that I'm missing. Because look, the Democrats aren't perfect, okay? And as much as I rant and rave about certain political topics, and we don't do it here, I get into my own spinning as well, and I'm not 100% right on everything. And that one person I know that's informed on both sides is Ken Jacobsen. So I actually do appreciate having him here today on this topic in this regard, because he's used guns, but he's also pretty open to some of the things that a lot of the rest of our country isn't.
I think a lot of the country actually is open to it. It's just not. It's not backed by the money that the gun side is, if we're being honest. And as Mike mentioned, it's not backed by the fanaticism within the primary system, which is a huge piece of this. I also think Mike hit on really a key point there, which is the balance between getting rid of guns that are basically only useful for killing human beings. War
weaponry.
What we generally term assault weapons. And getting rid of all guns. Because, again, you're right. I grew up hunting. I went hunting with my dad pretty much every fall from the time I was about 12 or 13 years old. And we used to take trips. I've been to parts of the country where a hunting rifle or a shotgun is a key piece to the way people keep their family fed throughout the winter. That part of, almost like an extra part of an income was shooting deer, shooting birds, keeping the freezer full of meat throughout the winter, save a little bit of money, not having to spend that money at the grocery store. And I don't want to see that tradition eliminated, and I don't want to see, from a practical economic standpoint, that eliminated. But, and this is, I would say, part of the problem on the liberal side, is this perception that somehow gun manufacturers and gun nuts are stupid, that, we can, as we did under the Clinton administration, pass a quote-unquote assault weapons ban that qualified what types of weapons and barrel lengths and things like this, and say, oh, well, we can't have a rifle with a barrel length shorter than 14 inches. Okay, you could do that, but understand the gun manufacturers are going to start to make a same style rifle with a barrel length of 14.000001 inches. That's going to be the reactions because there's so much interest and there's so much, economic power behind this. Again, I think the average last time I looked is there's something like 1.6 guns in America for every citizen. But it's not that everybody owns one. It's that the people who have them have like 20 of them. Yeah. And as long as that marketplace exists, some manufacturer's going to be around to service it, so it becomes very tricky. I will
Look,
default to the oh, sorry. I will default to the position that I always default to, which comes from Jim Jeffries, the comedian who does a hysterical routine about gun control. You should all look it up when you get the chance. It's about 10 minutes long and not only very insightful, but also really hysterically funny. But comes to a sad conclusion, which is if we didn't do anything Andy Hook, which was kind of the ultimate nightmare situation,
Right.
it was a quote unquote responsible gun-owning mom who put an AR-15 in a place where her developmentally disabled and antisocial son could get his hands on it and use it to butcher school children. If we couldn't come to
Elementary
a
kids.
resolution after that,
Yep.
yes. If we couldn't come to a resolution after that, I don't hold out any hope that we're ever coming to a resolution in this
No,
country.
and you know what? The sick part is not that it. Well, the sick part is that it keeps happening and nothing really gets done. But basically, this whole industry around the reaction of people, obviously, most sane people, is revulsion and horror. But there's this whole cottage industry that's sprouted that after these events occur, say, "Oh no, this didn't happen. False flag event." Spread all these just complete absurd, And the one thing that I guess has happened in the aftermath of these massacres is finally juries are punishing the wackos,
One
the
wacko, anyway.
conspiracy. Yeah, well, Alex Jones got spanked, but but the fact that that has been one of the reactions, and they always say, "Oh, they're coming for our guns. They're coming for our guns." When if you actually look at the data, gun sales spike after all these events. And
Sure.
now, like you mentioned, I think, a few years back at the time of Douglas, it was like 310 million firearms in the country. I think now it's up to like 380 million firearms, which, as you mentioned, for every adult in the country, I mean, it's more than one. I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle. And you mentioned a comedian, Jim Jeffries. His take was brilliant. But I go back to the Chris Rock thing. It's like, forget about gun control. What we need is bullet control. And it goes to actually something that I think, we do have the right to bear arms constitutionally in this country. And I don't want to just willy-nilly start overturning things in the Constitution, because that sets a slippery slope. But what I think it does, that Second Amendment doesn't say that you can't tax and regulate arms. And I think taxing the crap out of bullets, and especially those hollow point bullets and the ones that are used in those specific, semi-automatic weapons and the assault weaponry, and taxing them to the tune of maybe $1,000 a bullet. I don't know. Why can't that be a solution? And obviously people have personal handguns for their own protection. I don't want to take that away from people. Hunting rifles, I don't want to take that away from people. As you mentioned, Ken, there will always be end arounds, whatever, rules and regulations you put in place. But if you have a federal tax of $1,000 on every particular type of bullet, you're going to make people think twice about using those bullets, or, whatever figure it is. I don't know if that's a feasible thing, but it's just something that doesn't
It's
really
not.
get floated enough.
It's not. I mean, it's the power's there.
I mean, again, it goes back to me, part of the problem with the left's mindset on this is that the left seems to think that the people who make these weapons are dumb.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and say, well, we're going to put $1,000 on each bullet that's loaded into an AR-15, or each bullet that's loaded into whatever weapon. Well, then they're going to start making 30-06 style weapons that can fire at the same rates. You can't have hunting and responsible gun ownership and gun bans or ammunition bans at the same time. They can't coexist. The manufacturers will fill those holes. So we as a country sort of have to decide we want one or the other. And unfortunately, that's really complicated. The example I always use, after Las Vegas, Donald Trump wanted a bump stock ban. And a bump stock, for those who are unfamiliar with weapons, serves no practical purpose whatsoever. All it does, the entirety of what it does, is allow a semi-automatic weapon like the AR-15 to fire as if an automatic weapon, which is completely illegal and generally settled. I mean, probably like 95% of the country doesn't want people having machine guns. And we had a huge fight about bump stocks. I mean, we had a huge fight about bump stocks, which was basically that portion of the country saying, no, we want machine guns in the hands of people. I just don't see a resolution.
I don't know the answer. All I know is that it's still just keeps happening over and over and over again. The pain of the Parkland families is felt
I mean, there
more
was a
by
shooting
everyone
yesterday.
today, but
One
it's
last
felt by
yesterday at
them,
Michigan State.
everybody. Yeah, Michigan
It was
State. I mean,
yesterday.
it goes on and on. Every day there's what's called a mass casualty event where 4 or more people get wounded in the same incident by one gun or one gun-toting perpetrator. And you know what? I, giving up and cynicism, I don't know if that's the answer, but it's just, we're the only country where this happens with any regularity. We have chosen consciously to do nothing about it. I'm talking about our leadership. And you know what? It's just now considered a fact of life in this country that anytime you go out to any place, you could get cut down by a madman with a gun and bullets. And it's a really sad, depressing thing, but it just gets factored into our daily equation of anytime I go on 95, not only can I get in a wreck now, but some idiot can be shooting guns out the window on 95. It's insanity. It's despairing. I don't know the answers, and but we're gonna make a pivot back to food and frivolity. And again, today is about love, and I think if people just embrace love, and if that shooter got the love that he needed, if he, obviously had a very messed up childhood, but it's and even people who are feeling despondent and end up taking their own lives, like the shooter at Michigan State last night. Don't take other people with you. If you're going to do it, I don't want anybody to do that either. And I've lost a good friend to suicide by gun just a few months after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. But, he was in a dark place, and I can't pretend to understand depression of that sort. And that's a whole other issue. But it's just something that just have love in your hearts. Don't live by the golden rule. And I know this is just Pollyanna-ish,
I
but
know,
it's
it's
just
just
like
always
if more
ironic
people
like this.
did this,
Oh yeah,
then there wouldn't be massacres. And again, just
That's true.
I don't get that whole mindset. But then
I'm
again,
not
I'm a
going
guy.
to.
I'm an eater, not a fighter, and
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
that's it.
oh, did I
You know,
miss something? I thought we did live by the golden rule in this country.
Oh God, what are you saying?
Jesus
He who
Christ!
has
All
the
right, all right.
gold makes
We've
the rules.
totally, yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. I said this is not a political show, but on certain days, and this isn't meant to be political. This is just
It shouldn't be.
responding to an issue that has basically impacted so many people. And
No,
again,
look,
not
I
just
agree with you. I think there is a practical way to handle this, but it's not the solutions that have been on the table so far. I mean, look, we run around and we say, well, there's no way to do this. Well, apparently in the state of Florida, there's a way to ban books from school libraries. So there should be a way to figure this out. I just don't think we've come up with what that solution is as of yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what was a head scratcher? You've got our current governor that is pushing for more open carry, loosening up gun laws even more. He tweeted this morning about how we should all at 10:17 a.m. pay our respects to the Parkland 17 by pausing for a moment of silence. And then I just scratched my head and I said, why 10:17? The massacre occurred later in the day. I think it was at like 2:32 or 2:37. If the guy had any awareness, wouldn't he be calling for it at the moment that it happened? So again,
Give
to
a
me,
shit.
a tone deaf
Pardon me.
response by
No,
a
you
leader
do it at
who.
10:17, so the rest of the day you have to burn books about Hank Aaron.
All right, we've gone off the rails into the political weeds. We're going to take our first break now. I'm not even going to do a live spot because I don't want to do it after this kind of somber segment. But again, just hug the loved ones in your life, hold them close today, and just try to come at things with a spirit of acceptance and love, and leave the guns and bullets at home, please. We'll be back on the Lunchbox, and we'll start talking some food and Valentine's Day topics after these words on the Lunchbox. It's Mayo here for Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market. Since 1951, family owned for over 70 years, the home of freshness. I've been a customer for over 3 decades, and it's the place to go for poultry, steaks, meats, and of course, their unbelievable selection of fish and seafood. They've got it all. Key West pink shrimp, grouper, snapper, lobster, and of course, Florida stone crab claws of all sizes. Don't forget their famous fish dip and a full selection of prepared foods. It's located at 4191 North State Road 7 in Hollywood, just across from the Seminole Classic Casino. Owner Doug Carter and crew will take great care of you. Make sure to check out their weekly specials and daily catch online at DelawareChicken.com. Quality, value, freshness, that's the Delaware way. Tell them Mike Mayo and the Lunchbox sent you. Do you like pizza? Who doesn't like pizza? Well, my spot for pizza is the Pizza Spot. It's in that little bit hard to find Riverside Park neighborhood of Fort Lauderdale, but it's totally easy to love. It's at 601 Southwest 12th Avenue, New Haven style, a pizza from Wade and Reese. It's a lovely outdoor spot. You could also pick up pies to go at 754-779-7788, 754-779-7788. Again, they're open every day but Monday for lunch and dinner. Some of the best pizza I've ever had. Go to Pizza Spot. They also have subs, salads, and more. Tell them the Gambling Gourmet sent you. If you like seafood in a comfortable setting, outdoors, even keel fish shack at the corner of A1A and Commercial Boulevard in Lauderdale by the Sea, that's my spot. It's upscale food in a down-home setting. The chef owners, Dave and Brad, do a terrific job with all the seafood classics that you want. They have the best grilled oysters in town, bang bang shrimp, lobster rolls, and deli fish specials. They also have weekend brunch Saturday and Sunday. They have deli happy hour 4 to 7, and they also have other weekly specials like mussels on Monday and oysters on Tuesday. Go to Even Keel Fish Shack and tell them that the Lunchbox sent you. We're back on a Tuesday at-home edition of the Lunchbox. It's Valentine's Day edition, too. Defo is off in Atlantic City. God knows what he's betting on today. He sent me this racing form yesterday with there were only 3 tracks running live in the country yesterday. And one of them, Mahoning Valley in Ohio, had to cancel midway through the card, I assume because of the weather. So there was only Parks in Philadelphia and Turf Paradise, which is no paradise, out in Arizona. And I'm sure he was just plunging his guts out. With him gone, we have in his absence the professor, Ken Jacobsen, who is co-owner partner of the Foundry restaurant in Pompano Beach. And we appreciate him coming on. Let me just ask you, as a restaurateur, when I say the words Valentine's Day, do you see just big dollar signs and green, or is it a big one big panic anxiety attack of like, this is a nightmare day for servers and
money,
staff
money,
and
money, money. Look, as a restaurateur, I love Valentine's Day. I love. I break out the Barry White albums. No, I don't do the little heart thing, but no, I break out the Barry White albums and can't get enough of your love. As a frequent restaurant goer, I hate Valentine's Day. Oh God, do I despise Valentine's Day? This whole time of year is such a scam. Like we as restaurateurs, but not really mostly us. It's a whole bunch of other industries tied in. We are just separating you from your money for crap you don't really want. I mean, honestly, is there any other time of year where you actually think, you know what would be nice? Some Russell Stover's chocolates. No, those things are awful. You're throwing away 80% of the box because half the fillings are undigestible.
Garbage. Yeah.
Does anybody like replant or propagate their roses so they can make a nice rose garden? No, because it's a pain in the ass to tend to a rose garden. That's a lot of work. That's like having a second job. But we have convinced America that like you want some crap you don't really want that's going to end. How many teddy bears do you want in your house? Do you want one for every Valentine's Day? No. Things are going in a garage sale or they're getting donated to a charity, which is a good thing to do with them. But you don't really want those. I mean, and then, in the restaurant industry, look, it's a great day for us. We appreciate the business, but I'm the guy who will tell, a woman, look, I will buy you a car on February the 15th. But just don't make me go out. Don't expect me to willingly get beat up on Valentine's Day, like $80 or whatever for a dozen roses. You're out of your mind.
So, the Foundry, I wouldn't classify. It's a good restaurant. It's a nice place to take in some sports games and a great for I guess the weekend
Great happy hour,
brunches.
great brunch.
I love their burgers. Would you classify it as like a romantic
No,
restaurant, or but you still
we're casual.
yeah? And do people come in for Valentine's Day just because for people that can't get
I mean,
into some of the white
people come in for
tablecloth?
Valentine's Day for exactly that reason. And then there's some people who really just want to have a good time on Valentine's. They don't necessarily want, violins playing in the background and the dumbest one, I'm not going to name it, but a very nice Italian restaurant I know that used to do a prefix menu and then play like a romantic movie on the big TV in the background, which I thought was the stupidest idea. Like, why don't you just double up and make me see some goddamn Ryan Gosling movie that I would make Ryan Gosling pay me to see? Because I'm not in enough pain paying $180 a head for a $60 meal. Meanwhile, why don't you have the waiter stop by and hit on my girl and kick me in the balls during the middle of the minute?
So let me ask you this:
Some
as
people just want that more casual environment, and then we'll have a nice dinner special for those who are interested. And I'm sure there's a special dessert. I don't know what it is because again, I don't go out to restaurants generally on Valentine's Day if I can avoid it. But yeah, I mean, we'll have a nice environment for it, but no, we don't go all out for Valentine's Day. We're not that
well,
kind
you
of
know what? I would pay a surcharge at to see you at the Foundry on Valentine's Day, handing out a single red rose to
Oh
every
my He'll be with
female
Eve.
patron.
That would be great.
I,
You can go over there if you want, Ken.
Yeah, that's not gonna
I
happen.
would pay for that.
I
Okay.
mean, well, honestly,
Um,
I got a partner who might make that move, but that's more naturally his move. That's not me.
I'm only paying for you to do it, my friend, because that's it would just
That
be.
would be
I
amazing.
want to see all those reels on Instagram
I
or
mean,
TikTok
if
about
they're really
the
hot, I might be
professor.
willing to pour a tequila shot down your throat, but the rose thing's not happening.
All right. All right. Let me ask you this as a restaurant goer, not restaurateur. Somebody puts I shouldn't even use this analogy today, but if somebody forced you to go out
Okay.
to dinner on okay, the choice is New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, or Mother's Day.
Oh,
Which one are you choosing?
mom, easy.
I think you always go out on Mother's Day, don't you? You do
I
something.
mean, look, I don't know why, and thank God they do, because again, it's great for business. There is something wired into a woman's brain once she has babies that brunch it becomes the ultimate experience for her.
Mhm.
And like
Especially with bottomless
literally,
cocktails. Yes.
I think you could offer my mom the winning Powerball ticket or a Mother's Day brunch every Mother's Day for the rest of her life, and she might pick the brunch. Honestly, there's just something about that Mother's Day brunch. And look, it's your mom, so number one, you have to do it. Number two, honestly, for me, brunch is a fantastic excuse to start day drinking. So I don't really mind the Mother's Day brunch because nobody looks at you funny when you have 5 cocktails with Mother's Day brunch. Nobody's like, sir, you're drinking at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning and you're drinking.
Just
No,
to say-
nobody says that. So no, of those three, absolutely going for the Mother's Day brunch. No
Okay.
question
No,
about
and I scored big point. I and I agree with you because it's the one day where nobody wants to cook. Obviously, the moms don't want to cook, and I don't want to necessarily grill that day. I just want to have a relaxing time. And when my mom, when she was a little younger, we'd go out and to some of the good restaurants along the beach here. I think it was a couple of years ago. We went to Burlock Coast, have that nice waterfront view overlooking the Atlantic, the Ritz Carlton Hotel's restaurant there in Fort Lauderdale Beach. And then last year, I took baby mama Michelle. I shouldn't call her that. I took Michelle, who, when we were still talking to each other, we were in a little bit of a rough patch today, but but I took my daughter and her to. Have you been to the Sunday brunch buffet at Curro at the Hard Rock? It used to be at Council Oak, but it is a first class affair. They've raised the price on it. At the time I went last year, it was 110 per person,
I know it's nuts.
including bottomless drinks, and it doesn't have to just be mimosas and Bloody Marys. They'll make you like a Kettle One or a Tito's with soda.
that's
and keep
not. I mean,
bringing it.
110 they
Bad.
should,
It's
but
not
that's
bad.
nice.
It was great, and they had Alaskan king crab legs back then, like unlimited, all this high grade sushi. They had like lamb chops and USDA prime tenderloin beef Wellington. It was really a first class buffet that they have there. They have oysters and the raw bar stuff. It is up to $125 now, that inflation, but I still think it's a great deal. But that was good. It scored me big points, big brownie points for even though it's an X. I'll take any excuse to go out and celebrate a mother. But that was last Mother's Day. Now Valentine's Day, when I was married, I mean, it was one of those things. If I was ever, in any kind of relationship, I'd always prefer just cooking at home. It's much more romantic, don't you?
Yep.
That's what I
Yep.
think too.
Yep.
It's honestly, especially if as a man you can cook and maybe you don't do it that often, I think it's a much more romantic gesture to find that one thing that she really likes that you make really well and cook that at home as opposed to going out for Valentine's Day. Which isn't to say if that's what she wants, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
I think the more romantic gesture is like, okay, I got my cooking game on. I'm bringing my A game for this one. I'm gonna make something really nice that I know you enjoy.
Yeah. But there's something for everyone because I was over at Tropical Acres yesterday. I was talking to my friend Jack Studiali, and they're fully booked for today. They have basically it's only 600 on the books because Valentine's Day, everybody's a two top. There's a couple of tables that are four tops, and when you're in a big restaurant where you mostly
Sometimes
have
you can't find a babysitter.
yeah, well,
Honestly.
but there are basically, it's not their biggest volume day of the year, but he likes it because those two tops turn quicker, so they're trying to get
Yep,
more people in.
Yep.
But if you did want to go there, it's they have both a regular holiday menu and their regular normal a la carte menu. But we like Tropical Acres. But they, he was saying, people are usually well behaved. It's not like New Year's Eve where people get a little too rowdy. This is just couples coming in, they share a bottle of wine, and it's kind of mellow. But but I didn't even think of it that the volume actually gets cut down for some restaurants because everybody's a two top, so it's not necessarily. But it is. Then they jack up. Some places jack up the menu prices and have those special.
Oh
holiday
yeah,
menus.
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask
Yeah.
you a question. Because I have gone out a few times for Valentine's Day. Again, I'd rather cook something at home. But if you're going out for Valentine's Day, what is the go-to cuisine for romance and
It
Valentine's
used to
Day?
be French. Yeah.
See, that's it for me. I think classic French haute is absolutely the way to go. But they closed my favorite French
Oh,
place
yes,
back
Sage.
during COVID, and I don't think it's the one area I would say I think Broward County is maybe a little
Yes.
weak on. Not a ton of really good French out there.
Like high end French. Like I like
Not
escargot
necessarily high end,
bistro.
but like just really good.
Like nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Have you been to Escargot Bistro? It has a
I
change
have,
of
and that's
ownership.
very good. But that's one place.
Yeah, it's one place, and there are not enough. And it used to be it would be like every 5 places was a fancy French restaurant.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that it has fallen out of flavor because flavor because people are much more just casual these days. And for me, it was like I was shocked talking about Broward, but down in Miami-Dade at the Biltmore Hotel, like their high-end classiest restaurant was the Palme d'Or, and that shuttered. They no longer have the Palme d'Or at the Biltmore, and that was their like high-end 5-star French gourmet experience, and now it's been replaced by a very fancy upscale Italian restaurant. So it just goes to show that tastes change. And now I would say that in Broward, if you want that really refined, very expensive meal, you're going to be going to a place like Casa d'Angelo, which has a lot of big, it's more of the Italian, Northern Italian. Or you can blow the bank and go get into Anthony's Runway 84, which I just was there last week. But I don't consider that. Look, the interior is gorgeous. I don't know if I'd want to go in there for a romantic dinner for two because it's pretty loud and boisterous in there. It's like a supper club. But yeah, you're right in terms of just like the fancy, elegant place where the waiter comes in and presents the menus. And remember back in the days when the ladies' menu did not have prices on it?
Please, that's way before my time.
That was probably 30 I'm going back like in the 80s, early 80s, some of the fancy French restaurants, and now would be seen as wildly sexist, especially
Yes.
if it's two women in a couple. Like, who do you give the prices to? That's a little awkward, but
It's a setup for a bad joke.
yeah, that's it. So
Let's not make it.
anyway, if you are going out tonight, it's just to remember a little bit of patience and kindness also, because places are swamped and fully booked, and not usually on a Tuesday, but hopefully they have the proper staffing. But me, I don't know what I'm doing tonight. I probably might find a poker table and a bad grilled cheese sandwich or something like that.
That sounds romantic.
That's Ken's
And then hopefully I will be canoodling with a pair of queens, the Queen of Hearts and the Queen of Spades, and they'll maybe hold up in a hand, but who knows?
I
But
mean,
that's
I think we actually hit a little bit on a business opportunity here, which is, again, for all the people who just hammer people on Valentine's Day. I've never had kids, so I don't know. But do babysitters just go hog wild on Valentine's Day? Because it hits me that if I were a babysitter, Valentine's Day would be like $100 an hour. Like, I would just be
overcharged.
destroying you, because I feel like a quality babysitter on Valentine's Day can just name their price.
that's it. It's especially on a school night. It's like, hey, I got homework to do. I
Exactly.
really should be getting home. You got to pay the piper. But so for all those couples out there, if you're still looking for a place, you're probably SOL. But you can go onto the Let's Eat South Florida Facebook group, and pegged at the top, there are a couple of pinned to the top, a couple of posts about one with the Sun Sentinels dining recommendations, and then the other one where we allowed local eateries and restaurants to post their offerings for Valentine's Day, and maybe there's some last second opportunities there. And again, friend the Studiales at Tropical Acres, they're fully booked, but they do have a couple of walk-in spots available, but only if you get there on the early side. So if you are trying to maybe get a nice little steak dinner or prime rib, I think prime rib is very romantic. I don't know why, because it oozes that red juice, and that reminds me of
Okay.
roses and Valentine's.
I mean,
Jim Sarney also.
I don't need an excuse to make a prime rib.
I was gonna say, you're talking to the man who would agree with you.
And all right, so we're gonna before we go to our second break, I got to give you another option, and that's our newest sponsor, Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market at 4191 North State Road 7 in Hollywood. They're right across from the Seminole Classic Casino there, and it's basically, they have all kinds of goodies for a romantic dinner at home, including a special that they're offering that includes a bunch of stone crab claws, along with the shrimp cocktail, appropriate dipping sauces, and then they have some coleslaw and other sides, and a dessert options that include key lime pie. They make a good one there, or some chocolate cake. Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market is open every day, and today they're open until 6 p.m. And if you want to maybe get one of those packages, they have different options, the different size claws, starting, I think, at $124, a romantic dinner for two. Or you could just go in there and pick up a couple of their steaks and their regular, typical, really high quality seafood, the fish and the lobster and all the other things. It's been around since 1951, family owned. It's the home of freshness. I've been going there for more than 3 decades, and I just love it for any day of the week, whether it's a special occasion or any occasion. They've got it all: the Key West pink shrimp, the grouper, snapper, and all the stone crab claws that you expect. Make sure to check out their weekly specials online at DelawareChicken.com. Quality, value, and freshness. That's the Delaware way. Tell them Mike Mayo and the Lunchbox sent you.
And when we return, we'll have more Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, talk a little bit more cuisine with Professor / Restaurateur Ken Jacobsen here on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox.
People come to me and say, Mike, where should I go out to eat? I got guests coming from out of town. Where should we go? Cafe Seville. That's the answer. 2768 East Oakland Park Boulevard. It's a Fort Lauderdale perennial, serving the finest in Spanish and continental cuisine in a cozy, friendly, comfortable setting. Joey Esposito and Sally, his better half, they've been running the place for a long time. It's been open since the 1980s. They got great Spanish classics like paella, shrimp with garlic sauce, and all kinds of great seafood dishes. The stuffed veal chop, oh, that's my favorite. Go to Cafe Seville. It's open every day but Sunday at 5 p.m. for dinner. Tell them that the Lunchbox Mayo and Defo sent you. Do you like burgers? Do you like wings? Do you like late night food and sports on big screen TVs and cold beer and friendly vibe and great people? Then you want to check out Shenanigans, 1300 South Federal Highway in Dania Beach. You go to Shenanigans, you get yourself all the good stuff, the fresh fish every day, the black and grilled wings, and of course, the kitchens are open late. Go there, tell them that the Lunchbox Mayo and Defo sent. Looking for a great place for steaks, seafood, and more? Go to Tropical Acres Steakhouse and Butcher Shop. It's at 2500 Griffin Road in Dania, just west of I-95 in the airport. They've been there a long time, since 1949. That means they're doing something right. You'll get old school hospitality from the Studiali family, along with great value, for tremendous service. Of course, you could also go into the bar for happy hour every day, 4 to 6. The early bird special runs from 4:30 to 5:30, and they have great value all night long. Also, a butcher shop that's open every day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. except Sunday. The dining room is open every day at 4:30 except Sunday. Go to Tropical Acres. Tell them the Lunchbox sent you. Hey, it's Mike Mayo. When the Brooklyn boy in me wants a good bagel with Nova or some matzo ball soup, homemade knishes, or a great deli pastrami sandwich on rye, you know where I go? Grandpa's Cafe in Dania Beach. It's been around a long time, an institution, but a little over a year ago, a pair of New Yorkers came in, bought it, and refurbished the place. It's beautiful, and they are now serving great breakfast, brunch, lunch. They've got the omelets. They've got eggs Benedict. They've got all kinds of great baked goods like rugelach. Grandpa's is just off Federal Highway on Southwest 1st Street in Dania Beach. It's open 7 days. Go in there, tell them that the Lunchbox sent you. When I'm looking for some wicked good food for a wicked good lunch, there's only one place to go. That's Wicked Cheesesteaks in Fort Lauderdale. It's at 4824 North Federal Highway, just south of Commercial Boulevard and across from Holy Cross Hospital. My friend Brian there, he will hook you up with some really tasty treats. They've got cheesesteaks, just like the best you can find in Philly, along with lobster rolls, because that's where he's from, Maine originally, and they have wings and pizza and everything you want to have a really good time. Wicked Cheesesteaks, they're open every day but Tuesday. Go in there on a Wednesday. They got buy one, get one on cheesesteaks from 5 to 8 p.m. Check them out online, wickedcheesesteaks.com. Tell them the lunch. We're back on a Valentine's Day edition of the Lunchbox. Filling in for the traveling, gambling Defo is the Professor Ken Jacobsen, a restaurateur, co-owner of the Foundry in Pompano Beach. Give a plug, Ken. What's the address? And you got the bottomless drinks and your
You know the address?
service. I'm not sure I actually. 2771 East Atlantic, I believe. But don't quote me on that.
I didn't mean to be gotcha. I didn't mean to go all Jeff Weinzier on you and like.
Yeah, I'm actually terrible with remembering such things.
Yes,
My
we'll get you
brain's
right there, I
so
promise.
full of sports nonsense that I've forgotten other basic
That's all right.
facts.
That's all right. Yeah, no.
But yeah, no, brunch, as we've had the Lunchbox out. One of my favorite meals of the week. Bottomless, still $15, which the guys were impressed
Can't beat
with.
that.
That's great. That's great.
All sorts of great selections. My personal favorites, the avocado toast. But Mike had the breakfast pizza and was a fan
Breakfast
of that.
pizza, big thumbs up. I
Right.
liked it. Yeah.
Luby, who will of course eat anything for free, but
I have my favorite.
I don't know what's your go-to. Yeah,
Well, you gotta make it, and I won't say dolphin here, even though if I was by myself with the professor, he would be pissed at me for saying the other term. The mahi sandwich is great. And I know everyone down here does one, but they give you a nice piece of mahi. They do a really good job with that. They have the macaroni and cheese is really interesting. Craig, the GM, who does a great job. He's a really good dude, and he's weirdly a fan of the Defo show for years. Brought a bacon kind of infused mac and cheese to the table. So that's great. Look, the pizzas are because you go in there. It's they have a raw bar, the seafood, but the pizzas they're really interesting. There's a Primavera one that I like a lot. Look, as Ken knows, I could go down the friggin' menu, but the Foundry does a really good job, and the brunch is cool because as prices have gone up with the bottomless, we've noticed everywhere, and I don't mind it. Theirs hasn't, which is
No, that's
$15
very
bottomless is
impressive,
insane.
especially considering the way that I can drink and probably Luby. I'm gonna have to go in there and do some damage now. And one of my favorite things is, well, first of all,
You
you
do a great
still are
burger.
just it's only well, dinner. It opens at 4 to 7 happy hours during the
Correct.
week, and then you do have the brunch service on the weekend. At one point, did you have weekday lunch service, and was that just a
We did.
casualty of COVID? And is it
We
might be
did,
coming
and
back,
it was.
especially in season? Or
We did. It was a casualty of COVID. Unfortunately, one of the results of COVID is that the office crowd in and around the area kind of never came back.
Going out.
Right.
So at the moment, we're really not considering bringing lunch back just because there's not a lot of lunch traffic in the area.
But let me ask you this: if I came in there, say tonight on a Tuesday at 4:30 p.m., and I requested a Bloody Mary, could you make me a Bloody Mary?
Could I make you a Bloody Mary, or could the
Or
restaurant make you a Bloody
could the
Mary? Two very
bartender,
different
could the
questions.
staff, could the
Yes,
staff make
very
it?
much so.
Okay. So that would be a big selling point and differentiation point between that place across the street that shall remain nameless. Who Houston's? Okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry, I just sneezed. That refuses to make Bloody Marys except when they only deign
they
to make
do?
their special Bloody
Yes,
Mary
so
mix on weekend brunch service. They only offer Bloody Marys during weekend brunch service, which is the point where I wrote off Houston's
They want like a
forever.
Wednesday at night, wanted a Bloody Mary, and most
No, it
people
wasn't at night. It was a daytime holiday with my daughter. She was off from school. It was in the middle of season right now in February. It might have been President's Day, which is coming up. And I look around at all these schmoes and boaters and people who are retired and have more money than know what to do with. Everybody is in this permanent holiday mode. How do you operate a restaurant and say, no, you cannot have a Bloody Mary because it's a Monday or a Tuesday? And I said, well, surely you must have the ingredients that can concoct a Bloody Mary behind the bar. And they were like, well, we don't do it only on, we only do it on weekends because it's our special mix. And that really set me off. Um, do with that as you may. I mean, you're a competitor across the street, but I just think it just scored high on the douchey scale. And I always thought the hospitality business was saying most of the times when it's a reasonable request saying yes, but they have become known as the house of no. But now I've got off on a rant again. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm sure
At
Professor.
at the risk of once again offending your viewers, I would say that douchey is kind of what Hillstone specializes in. Personal opinion. That's not. I'm not speaking as a competitor.
They're
or
very
that's
successful.
my
They
own
curate.
experiences. I'm not a fan. I've had friends who were kicked out of there for dress code. I've had friends who have gotten into it with management about sitting inside versus outside.
And you can't be more than a party of four. If you're a five top that squeezes into those very spacious booths, they won't serve you, even if you fit. That's just against their rules. And I
I
love
don't
the
want to
thing
get.
I love the
I don't
thing I
want to get
love most.
offensive, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, bring a lump of coal, and there are people in there who can make a diamond. Let's put it that way.
Well, I
It's
just
actually
love
worse
what I
than-
don't like
that's
about
what
them
it is.
is the blatant, like just the chutzpah of they have on their webpage all these guidelines. They say they have the chutzpah to say in the same paragraph, we are family friendly. However, we don't allow strollers in the dining room. We don't offer high chairs, and if we see a kid running around, we'll just immediately throw him in the nature coastal. All right, that last part they don't do, but you can't go out and say we're very family friendly and say we will do nothing to
Bring
accommodate
kids.
small children. So that's it. I'm
Well,
done
I
with
know
my
they
harangue.
closed the docks, so they probably don't throw the kids off the intercoastal anymore.
No, they might. All right, so enough of that. I wanted to get into what's become the talker of the day on the Let's Eat South Florida group.
That was an
is,
interesting post you sent over. I'm actually curious of his opinion.
So, all right. I don't know. Do you ever see the Dirty Dining segments on Channel 10 that Jeff Weinzier does? And that basically he went and visited a place a couple of weeks ago in Davy. It's a pizza establishment that's been there almost 20 years. It's called Esposito's New York and Coal-Fired Pizza. And they had gotten dinged a few days earlier by the health department for roaches and all kinds of live and dead roach activity. But did you see this? And basically the owner did not handle it so well when he saw Jeff and camera crew in tow. You did not see the segment? It went
I
viral.
did not,
Okay.
but I can't imagine anybody handling it well if they saw the news people coming in that scenario.
Yeah, well, this guy, it ended up becoming kind of an instant viral classic because um, Jeff posed the question of why are there live roaches in your kitchen? And the owner's response was, your mother has roaches.
Oh, no.
Which, as a Brooklyn boy, it kind of made me crack up, but probably not the best response on camera. Anyway, obviously that clip has been seen and the segment has been seen, and it impacted the guy's business along with the closure itself. Anyway, he the owner of the business is named Joe Lay, and he reached out to me last night and said he wanted to post something on Let's Eat, basically with a explanation, apology, and just kind of a fuller thing. And I saw it, I read it, and I put it up this morning, and it's already been up there for a few hours, and it already has almost 400 comments. But basically, he laid out the situation of that. This was their first time where something like this happened, where they got dinged. And I looked up their, inspection.
Yeah, you can see the record. Like, you can see if it's true or not.
From the last few years, they have never been dinged for any kind of bugs or roaches. And his whole point was that obviously, yeah, they rectified the situation. It probably came in with a box of food because he says that they are treated every week and they have a pressure cleaning, a full cleaning crew comes in every night at 2 a.m. that power washes and that they do take, all kinds of steps to maintain and clean the property. And that he just lost his cool because he felt like he was ambushed. They were skulking around the back and filming, and then they approached him, and he said if they just kind of come in through the front door and asked him for an interview, he might have agreed to it. Anyway, Joe Lay laid all this out in a post. Seems like the reaction has been mostly like accepting and sympathetic, and understanding that a business owner, when they see, it's like when Mike Wallace in the 60 Minutes crew shows up, I guess there's two ways to go. You could totally panic and blow it, or you could try to maybe hire a crisis PR team on the spot and just say, can you hold off for an hour, buddy, and we'll talk in a minute. But I don't know. What do you think? Have you ever been dinged by the health department? Is there a good way to handle it, or especially I guess you got to own it and then just kind of go from there? Or what are your thoughts? Or you've never been obviously featured on Dirty Dining or Jeff Wine's Ear, but these things are, I would imagine it could rattle you, right?
Well, I can say as the grandson of a grandfather who once actually did try to kill Mike Wallace, that I understand such reactions are going to be negative, but that's a long story. We have never had a health department issue, but we did have a fire. We had a fire about 3 or 4 years ago, and it ended up on the news. It was very public. Fortunately, there wasn't a ton of damage, so the Serve Pro people came in, and we were only down like a day and a half. I think we missed one full day and then lunch the next day. And look, it's traumatic when it happens. And, with the health department stuff, some things are kind of unavoidable in South Florida. Bugs, sorry. I mean, you do your best in terms of service, but every place is going to have roaches. The question is, how quick do you see them and how quick do you get them killed?
Look,
I have any place.
I have pest control treatment. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, any place. Our place, we had a fruit fly thing because we have the outdoor bar, and I guarantee every outdoor bar has had fruit flies at some point.
What are you gonna do?
Totally unavoidable, and all you can do is call your people and get it taken care of as quickly as possible, and understand we're doing our best for the health, but it is somewhat unavoidable. And some of my favorite places have had these incidents. Barbecue Blue Willie's had a bunch of incidents when they opened their location down on Commercials with it. And I loved Blue Willie's. I probably would have eaten one of the rodents if they had barbecued it correctly.
Well, you know, in
That
Asia,
was how good
the
their
bugs
cooking was. But
sauce are protein. Yeah.
all I could say is my sympathies. And if you don't react well when the news crew's coming, I think it's understandable because it's the most stressful situation you can possibly be put in the middle of.
That-
And
that-
that's the
so
thing is, what's the right way to act? Because we talk about wines here, and I guess he is a friend of Nikki, and he seems like
well,
a
no,
good
and let me
but he's
stop you
still
now.
like poke fun at a lot of this stuff. Like I feel like the way it happens is he doesn't want your best reaction. Like, I mean, you tell me, Mayo, you may know him. I feel like that's sort of the idea of the entire segment. Isn't let's go give him a heads up and see if he handles this well. Like that's not
some of it is a little with the arched eyebrow and being a little bit sardonic. And again, this is people's livelihoods and businesses. And
Exactly.
that's my thing.
if a place is a repeated, violator, chronically dirty, chronically getting shut down, then that's one thing. But for a one-off, and I think, well, here's the thing, guys. Because I am a journalist at heart and I believe in fairness, I have invited both Joe Lay to come on the show and explain a little bit more, the owner of Esposito's, and I've invited Jeff Weinzier to come on the show separate days. I don't want to have any kind of back and forth, but I also want to talk to Jeff about his methodology, which places he chooses, because there are a number that get closed every week, and are there certain things that he's looking for, and in a case like this where it seems to be a first kind of offense with bugs, at least in the last 4 years, going back to the inspections that I was able to see. I didn't go back for 10 years, but that if there's no recent chronic pattern here, is it fair to go in for a one-time offense, and that it could be just related to a box of food that was infested, and I want to get his what's his methodology. Does he always try to go through the front door first, or does he maybe try to get some B-roll first, knowing that he might get thrown off? And these are kind of technical questions, but he's agreed. He's willing to come on. So Jeff, he's already cleared it with his bosses, because it's a popular segment, and I think the food community, they want to know a little bit more. And I sometimes think that things might be unfair or fair. I have my own markers. I was a food critic, and I would look up restaurants inspections, before deciding whether to review a place, or if I reviewed a place and then something happened in the time that I first ate there. And this has happened where you go in like 3 weeks ago and then they have an inspection and they get dinged, and how do you handle it? And do you you got to be upfront and transparent with the readers, and then you also have to ask the restaurant operators about it. But to me, the things that are really kind of deal killers and meal killers, it's not so much the bugs, because it's South Florida and the bugs are going to win in the end. And and I get pest control treatment at my house. The other night I stepped out of bed, crunch, I stepped on a dying cockroach, because it had rained over the weekend, and they come in and through the cracks, and then you get the ones they get the treatment, and they are ending up, sometimes I find them dead, and sometimes I find them in their death throes. But it happens. And if I didn't eat at my own kitchen because I found roaches, that wouldn't be, I would not be able to eat at home ever again. So I don't try to overly harshly judge restaurants on that front. But there are certain things when there's rodent droppings, that shows you that there's some sort of infestation, and that you got to really get on right away. And if you don't, and it gets to the point where there's lots of, there was a place up in Delray that has been a long time diner, has a good reputation. They found 357 rodent droppings around the kitchen. And that's like just shows signs of neglect. It's like that, you can't say that just showed up in one day. So that to me is a deal breaker and a meal breaker. We pulled that restaurant from the Best of Delray app. We also, and then there's things like improper storage and of food, it's having it at the wrong temperature, or trying to cut corners, and something that you made 2 weeks ago and you're supposed to toss it after 7 days. That to me, it shows a place is like they're willing to sacrifice their customers' health and safety for some profit. And the things might be getting tough and tight, but you should never keep food around longer than it should be, and you should be tossing food. And again, same thing. I know that sometimes people keep something out a little bit longer. Depends what it is. If it's a cheese pizza, I don't care. But if it's raw chicken, So that's my markers. I don't know about you, Ken. Is there anything you look for when you're going out to eat? Do you even do research on restaurants' inspection history?
I really don't. I mean,
I didn't know people could. That's good to know. I didn't even
no,
know.
you can. I really don't. I hear about places from friends, so I get a lot of recommendations, and I've got my go-tos. And I got to be honest, in a lot of cases, I just don't care because I'll hear a bad story, but I like a place.
Mhm.
I don't want to do names. There's a sushi place. Um, I We heard a story about a piece of sushi that got bitten into and had worms in it, but it was a reef fish. And I know enough from fishing over the years. Reef fish have worms in them, and sometimes when you're cutting them, they'll be deep enough into the muscle that you don't notice. It happens. You got to live with, and the person who did it will probably never eat at that place again. It said, but I'm not going to stay away from that sushi place I like because one person found worms in a fish. I've
Were
also
the worms live?
I assume they were dead. I didn't get that far
Yeah.
into the story.
Because all the
Um,
fish that you get served at a sushi restaurant is supposed to be frozen for a certain amount of time to destroy
Yeah.
the parasites. People don't even realize that.
Again, I've also eaten enough fish off of reefs down here that I'm 100,000% sure that I've eaten worms out of fish, off of fish I've caught because it just happens that way sometimes. Um,
I've
another
eaten
Mex-
worms out of the bottom of tequila
Yeah, on
bottles.
purpose,
That has
yeah.
definitely happened. So.
Another Mexican place that I'm a big fan of. I heard a story once that a scorpion fell through the roof onto the bar and started skittering away. Now, if I had been there, that would have scared the hell out of me because I'm definitely scared of scorpions. But I'm not going to stop going because of one bad incident. Look,
Yeah, and the
we
thing
live in
is,
South Florida. There's bugs and critters everywhere. I did see a picture on Twitter yesterday that one would have scared me away. There was a restaurant, I think it was in Peru, but it was definitely somewhere in South America, that a dead snake started falling out of the wall. So they brought in the snake handlers and they started to pull on it, and a 30-foot python that was eating the dead snake fell through the roof.
this is-
And everybody freaked out. So if a 30-foot python fell through your roof, I probably would never go again. But short of that, I understand
but I'm like,
that stuff happens.
I'm like you, Ken. It's like if I've been to a place and I like the food and I've never had any ill effects from the food, then I will likely go back and be, forgiving. So that's again, but everybody's got their own personal decisions to make.
100%.
But
And the people who are really super cautious about it, I 100% get it, but understand that it is to some degree unavoidable, as you mentioned, particularly with the
certain
bugs.
certain
Yeah.
things, yeah. And again, I'm not making excuses for restaurateurs. They should be on top of things and should have their routine pest control and maintenance things. And but stuff happens, bugs happen. All right, that's gonna do it. Oh, we got to put in a good word. If you're looking for Valentine's Day restaurants, one resource is you could go to the visitlauderdale.com website, because they have a whole section about restaurants, and you can find all the different restaurants grouped by cuisine and price point, waterfront dining, romantic dining. Greater Fort Lauderdale welcomes everyone under the sun, and that means all you foodies and lovers out there for Valentine's Day. This is a great place to come and explore. All the people who are into the fine dining or casual dining, places with breathtaking views of the intracoastal dockside dining or along the beach, lively cafes along Las Olas Boulevard, award-winning chefs serving up every cuisine imaginable, including our friend Tim and Baloo at the Catherine. I don't know if they have any availability for Valentine's Day, because they're usually closed on Tuesdays, but I would think you have to make an exception and open up for Valentine's Day, because, again, it's all about welcoming the couples and celebrating love. And you can do that in Greater Fort Lauderdale. So come stay and play and discover taste sensations at more than 4,000 area restaurants, along with thrilling nightlife scene, the Visit Lauderdale Ale Trail, hidden speakeasies, rooftop bars, and expert mixologists serving up amazing cocktails. It's a never-ending culinary and libation celebration in Greater Fort Lauderdale, and everyone's invited. So please go check out visitlauderdale.com for all the latest deals, promotions, and upcoming events. All right, Luby, the professor, I think we pretty much did it, right?
You did it, sir.
It was
Pleasure to be here.
it was a show. And thank you, Ken. We will see you on check out Defo's show every Friday, the between 7 and 9 a.m. And the professor blesses us with his hilarious big board every week. He comes up with a topic of the week and does a top 5 list.
It is guaranteed laughs, and hopefully nobody will be repulsed. So
You may be, but that's part of the fun.
Honestly, if you were repulsed by this appearance, you almost certainly will
Do
be
not
by
watch
the big
it.
boy.
yes. Oh, I forgot to, and I got to go a little bit overtime. What did you think of my favorite commercial in the Super Bowl, the Dunkin' Donuts ad? Did you see that one?
I talked about this like 3 weeks ago when they filmed it, and I found out because it hit the internet. I began to carry a vitamin water bottle full of laundry detergent and kerosene. So I now have a Molotov cocktail handy just in case I ever pull up to a Dunkin' Donuts and Ben Affleck is behind the counter.
He
He's
is just
there.
kidding, folks.
Be warned,
He-
Dunkin'. I'm not kidding. I carry now a live Molotov cocktail.
What is
Or
the
Dunkin' Donuts in
origins?
that situation.
What is the origins of your absolute, I guess, revulsion of Ben Affleck and what he stands for?
I don't know, really.
I don't know. 'Cause he didn't
I
always.
mean, really, it's
real
just one of those
defined.
things that's amplified up over the years. I mean,
It's just Boston. You don't
and
like
I-
all things Boston.
and he seems to be the living representative of all things Boston.
I like him. I think he's a very talented guy, and
Ben does
I
not
like his
agree.
taste in
You're
women too.
you are 100% too entitled to your very incorrect opinion. Much like everybody who was telling me all last week how great Kansas City barbecue is.
Oh, I
You're-
forgot to chug the sauce for you. We'll have to do it tomorrow with Gia.
You guys have
I was
fun.
gonna chug some Kansas City barbecue sauce to salute hail to the Chiefs, but I got so wrapped up in the stories of the day, I didn't get to it. But programming note: tomorrow, I think we're going to be starting a little bit late. I think we're going to schedule the start for 12:30 p.m. instead of our usual noon start because I have to take care of Mom. We have a doctor's appointment that you have to be at the mercy of the doctors when they have openings. You got to go. So we're going to be back here tomorrow at 12:30 with another special guest host. Tomorrow, I haven't confirmed it yet, so I'm not going to announce it, but I think it's going to be a refreshing change of pace, a former radio personality in town. So we will see you then tomorrow at 12:30 on another edition of the Lunchbox. For Mike Luby Lubitz and Ken the Professor Jacobsen, thank you for tuning in. Remember to hug your loved ones. And have a great Valentine's Day, no matter what you do. And remember to enjoy every sandwich.